The sky above Veralis turned red as the Brackner swarm fell from orbit like fire. People screamed and ran through the silver streets. Children hid behind walls made of crystal, the defenders small and weak compared to the enemy-fired laser. Cannons that barely scratched the enemy hulls. The smell of burning metal and ash filled the air. The capital was falling, minute by minute, breath by breath. Ambassador Liren stood in the command center, his hands shaking. The generals were already dead. Their ships destroyed in the first wave. He was not a soldier. Just a diplomat from a peaceful race who never expected war. Around him, the last leaders of Veralis argued over what to do. "Call the Galactic Union," someone cried. "They already said no," Liren whispered. "They won't risk their fleets for one planet," another said. "Then we must surrender to the Brackner. Do you think they take prisoners?" Liren asked. "They eat planets." Silence filled the room. They had called for help, but no one came. No ally wanted to face the Brackner. A swarm that consumed life, destroyed cities, and moved on. It was over. But then Liren remembered something. "Forbidden. Try Earth," he said softly. The others turned and laughed. "Earth?" One snorted. "The human world? The animals?" "They're not animals," Liren said. "They are survivors." A woman in a science uniform frowned. They were banned from the Union decades ago after incidents. Liren nodded slowly. "Yes, and those incidents are the only reason." "They might save us now. They're monsters," someone muttered. "No," Liren said. "They are the galaxy's last monsters. With no other choice, they sent the signal. Short and clear. Veralis, under attack. Final request. Earth assistance." Then they waited. An hour passed, then two, outside. Explosions shook the city, and towers fell. The Brackner were breaking into the last defense lines. Liren sat alone, staring at the black screen. "No reply," someone said. "Maybe it's for the best." Another whispered, "Maybe the humans forgot us." But then the screen blinked. A message appeared. Just 4 words. "Threats acknowledged. Team deployed." No name, no ship ID, no signature, just 4 cold words. "What does that mean?" asked the young officer. "Are they sending help?" Liren stood, staring at the screen, his voice low. "It means they're coming." 3 hours later, as the Brackner reached the gates of the last shelter, 5 ships entered the planet's orbit. Not warships, not battleships, small crafts. Silent and black, they moved like shadows, avoiding Brackner sensors with ease. They landed outside the city, where smoke touched the sky. People ran to see them, expecting troops, machines, maybe giant robots. But what stepped out were just 5 humans, 5 figures, calm, still, and unafraid. The leader was a woman with gray eyes and a scar across her cheek. She wore no armor, just dark clothes and gloves that shimmered faintly. Behind her was a giant half-man. Half-beast, breathing heavily like a machine, a thin man followed. Typing on a floating screen as sparks flew from his fingertips, a woman with snow-white hair and a long rifle on her back walked behind them, her eyes sharp like a bird, and then, the last a boy, no more than 16, silent, glowing faintly with strange light. "Are you? Our army?" Someone asked, confused. The leader looked at them, then said only, "Stay out of our way, then." Without another word, the 5 humans walked into the fire. No plan shared, no map shown. They vanished into the smoke, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Hours passed, then explosions rocked the far side of the city. Not from the Brackner, but from inside their lines. Reports came in enemy ships falling from the sky, systems dead, pilots screaming, a sniper fire that no one could trace, soldiers ripped apart in the shadows. Brackner mechs hacked and turned against their own. One camera caught a blur before its feed went dark. It was the boy, glowing like a star, walking through fire untouched. And in the distance, someone saw the leader standing on a tower. She looked up at the stars and whispered something. Then the Brackner airship exploded behind her, in the command center. Liren watched all of it in silence. No one spoke, no one cheered, they just stared because they realized something. The Brackner were not fighting humans. They were being hunted. Smoke still filled the air when the 5 humans walked deeper into the ruined city. The Brackner swarm was everywhere, crawling over buildings, tearing through walls, burning everything in sight, but the humans didn't run. They didn't hide. They moved like shadows. Quiet and controlled, the leader, Riley Ghostkale, touched the side of her head, her eyes scanning the sky. She saw the patterns in the smoke, the weak points in the enemy movement. "This way," she said. And the team followed, without a word. Grim, the beast man, carried no weapon. He didn't need one. His muscles were packed with synthetic fibers and bone reinforcements. Each step he took cracked the stone under his feet. He sniffed the air and growled, "Too many above us." Ghost nodded. "Take the east wall," surged the hacker. Was already working. He crouched near a broken terminal, connected a thin wire from his arm, and closed his eyes. His mind entered the enemy network like a knife through silk. He smiled as panic broke out among the Brackner. Their drones were falling, systems locking up, data melting, he whispered. They left their doors wide open. Ice, the sniper, climbed the tallest remaining tower in silence. She lay on her stomach, pulled out her rail rifle, waited. She needed no commands, no targets. She just listened to the sounds of war, picked the heartbeat that didn't belong. Every time she pulled the trigger, someone important died. And not even their allies saw it coming. Nova, the quiet boy, walked alone. His skin shimmered faintly. His eyes glowed like dying stars. He looked small, harmless, but wherever he stepped, the air grew still. A group of Brackner warriors cornered him in an alley, thinking he was lost prey. Seconds later, they all collapsed, their armor frozen, their eyes wide with fear. Nova whispered, "I'm not yours," and kept walking. In the Viralis command center, Lurin stared at the screens. The humans had vanished from radar, but explosions kept lighting up enemy positions. It was like the Brackner were being attacked by ghosts. "Where are they?" asked the young officer beside him. Lurin replied softly, "They're exactly where they need to be." The Viralisians began to notice. Citizens hiding in the underground shelters heard strange sounds, a whisper, a thud, a crash, and then silence. When they peeked outside, the Brackner bodies were there, twisted, broken, burnt. But no humans in sight on the rooftop of the old ministry. Ghost stood watching the chaos below. She tapped her earpiece. Status. Grim responded first. "Sector 5 cleared. They ran from me," Surge added. "I shut down their comms. They can't call for help," Ice whispered. 6 down. No misses. Nova didn't say anything, but they all knew he was near. Ghost. "Look to the sky, they're afraid." Surge laughed quietly. "Of course they are. They thought we were legends." Ice spoke. Calm as always. They thought wrong. The Brackner sent in heavy walkers, giant machines with plasma cannons. The ground shook as they approached the shelters, ready to finish the civilians. But before they could fire, one of the walkers stopped. It twitched, sparked, then exploded from the inside. Grim stood in the smoke, his body covered in burns, breathing hard but smiling. Another walker aimed its cannon at him, then its head exploded from the far tower. Ice chambered another round. "No second chances," she whispered, in the underground tunnels. Nova found a group of Viralis children trapped behind rubble. One girl cried, "Don't hurt us!" Nova knelt beside her, placing a glowing hand on the wall with a soft hum. The stone melted away like ice in the sun. He didn't speak, just nodded and moved on. The children ran to safety, and from that moment, the people of Viralis stopped fearing the humans. They didn't understand them. They saw what they were doing, fighting monsters for them, risking everything. As the sun began to rise, the city stood still. Fires burned low. The Brackner were retreating from several zones. They had lost more in one night than in 100 battles. Their generals screamed in confusion, "Who is doing this?" The answer came from a hacked transmission. It played across all Brackner channels. In every language, a calm human voice said, "You called us animals. Forgotten. Broken. You were wrong. We are Earth's top threats, and we just arrived." The sun rose over Viralis, but peace did not follow. Instead, smoke floated across the city, mixing with dust and fear. The Brackner swarm had pulled back, confused and shaken, but the 5 humans didn't stop. They didn't rest. They hunted Ghost. Stood on a building rooftop, watching the enemy retreat. She tapped her earpiece and said, "Phase 2 begins." No one replied with words. Just quiet. Clicks, one from Grim, one from Surge, one from Ice, one from Nova. That was all she needed. Grim ran through the streets like a storm. His steps cracked stone. His roars echoed through tunnels. He found a squad of Brackner drones regrouping near the market ruins. Before they could turn, he was already in the air. His fists crushed metal. His roar shattered their will. One Brackner tried to run, but Grim caught it by the neck. He whispered too slow and ended it with one hand. Surge slipped into the remains of an old power station. He opened his fingers and thin wires extended, crawling like snakes. He touched the console, and his eyes flashed. Within seconds, the entire grid became his playground. Brackner command. Posts went dark, cameras flipped to show fake footage, and turrets turned on their own troops. He chuckled. Welcome to chaos. Ice remained silent on her high perch. From the top of a broken hotel tower, she watched every movement. When she saw a Brackner captain running across the courtyard, she didn't wait. She held her breath, adjusted for wind, and fired. The bullet passed through the captain and hit the soldier behind him. 2 kills, 1 shot. She said nothing, just loaded another round. Nova moved like fog. He walked through walls, or at least it seemed so. The temperature dropped wherever he passed. And the Brackner learned to fear the cold. He stood outside a prison cell, where Brackner were keeping Veralis citizens. With a wave of his hand, the doors melted, and he stepped in. "Run," he whispered. The prisoners fled, and Nova disappeared. Again, the Brackner warlords panicked. "This is not war," one screamed. "This is slaughter." "They fight like ghosts," said another. "They are ghosts," their commander replied. "Ghosts from Earth." They sent elite hunters, giant machines with shields and energy blades. They tracked Grim through the alleyways, trying to trap him, but Grim didn't run. He stood in the center of the street and waited. When they charged, he smiled, he jumped, grabbed the first machine's arm, and ripped it off. The others hesitated. Grim pointed at them and said, "Now it's your turn." Minutes later, the alley was silent again. Meanwhile, Surge took control of the orbital drones above Veralis. He redirected them to fire on their own motherships. Laser blasts rained down, and the sky turned red again. Surge leaned back, proud Brackner. Tech tastes like old candy. Ice took out a sniper team that tried to hunt her. She waited until they got close, then moved behind them silently. Her rifle cracked once, then again. Each bullet found its target, clean and cold. She whispered, "Don't you never saw me." Nova walked through the Brackner's last command bunker. He didn't speak. He didn't touch anything. He just looked at them, one by one. The Brackner inside collapsed. He never laid a hand on them. The last one begged, "What? Are you?" Nova tilted his head, then faded into the shadows. The people of Veralis began to come out of hiding. They followed the sounds of battle, and found only the remains. No enemy left standing, just silence and fear in the air. Children pointed at the humans and said, "They saved us, but the elders knew better." "They didn't come to save us," one whispered. "They came to end something in the command center." Lurin watched the map. Every red dot, every Brackner unit was disappearing. He turned to the others and said, "This isn't a war anymore. It's a hunt." The Galactic Union picked up strange signals from Veralis, unusual tech use, weapon signatures to advance for humans. A message was sent. "Please confirm." Human presence. Earth responded with one line, "Protocol Eclipse activated. Observation not advised." Back on Veralis, Ghost stood among the ruins, her team around her. They had cleared the city. But she wasn't smiling. "We're not done," she said. "They'll run, but they'll try to regroup." Grim cracked his knuckles. "Let them." Surge tapped his arm screen. "I've already marked their escape routes." Ice looked to the horizon. No survivors. Nova stood still, glowing softly, silent as always. Ghost looked at the rising sun. This planet is safe, she said. Now we finish it. And the hunt continued. Across the galaxy, leaders watched in confusion. They had received the same distress signal from Veralis, but they had chosen to ignore it. The Brackner were too dangerous, too wild. No one wanted to risk war with them now. Something was wrong. Their satellites showed impossible data Nomi. Losses rising fast, cities being retaken, Brackner command ships destroyed without a single fleet present. They checked again and again. But it was always the same. Only 5 small Earthcrafts had landed. Just 5. The Galactic Union opened an emergency session. Who did they send? One ambassador asked. Not soldiers. Another replied. No registered units. No legal war fleet. A nervous voice spoke from the far side of the hall. What if Earth sent the threats? The room fell silent. That name had not been spoken in a long time. The Earth Threat Program, also known as Project Eclipse. A black operation hidden for decades. Most thought it was a myth, a tale told to scare children. One diplomat, older than most, nodded slowly. I was there, he said. 40 years ago, they made them. Humans so dangerous, they had to be locked away. On Veralis, the people began to ask questions too. Who were these humans? Why were they so powerful, so silent, so cold? A Veralis engineer found a damaged chip near one of the Brackner wrecks. It wasn't Brackner tech, it was human. She repaired it and opened the file. What she saw made her heart race. The file was titled Eclipse Protocol Assets ACTIV. It had 5 names, each with a warning label. Asset number 1, Riley Ghostkale Leader, Strategic Assassin. Asset number 2, Subject Grim Bioweapon. Close Combat Asset number 3, Surge Neural Hacker System Override Specialist. Asset number 4, Ice Marksman. Motion Suppressed Sniper Asset. Number Way, Nova Unknown Class, Reality, Instability, Risk. Each profile ended with the same red warning. Threat level, Exceptional. Not to be deployed unless planetary loss is guaranteed. She shared the file with the Council, and for the first time, the leaders of Veralis sat in silence. They hadn't been saved by heroes. They had been saved by something worse, something Earth had built, then buried. In the ruins of a Brackner base, Ghost and her team stood together. The sun cast long shadows behind them. They had finished clearing the enemy camps around the mountains. Ghost opened a metal case. Inside were black tags, dog tags with no names, only numbers. She handed each one to her team, a reminder, not of who they were, but of what they were made for. Grim looked at his tag, grunted, and put it around his neck. Surge rolled his eyes. This again? Ice just clipped hers to her belt. Nova held his in his palm, staring like he didn't understand it. Ghost closed the case and whispered, Earth remembered us. Surge smirked. Took them long enough, Ice said quietly. Or maybe they waited for the right time, Grim added. Or the right death count, Ghost said. Doesn't matter. We're awake now. A message flashed across the Veralis sky, hijacked from the satellite feed. It showed a hologram of Earth's official seal. Then a voice played. To all observing parties, Earth has deployed threat assets. Approach with caution. Further interference will be considered a hostile act. The Galactic Union panicked. They tried to contact Earth's government, but got no reply. One member shouted, This is illegal. They've released monsters. Another answered, Monsters who just saved a planet, and still Earth said nothing. They watched from afar, quiet as always, but now the galaxy remembered what humans really were, not just traders, not just explorers. They were the ones who survived deathworlds, the ones who turned extinction into evolution, the ones who made weapons out of people. On Veralis, the people no longer cheered for their human saviors. They watched them from a distance, both grateful and afraid. The children who once ran toward them now hid behind walls. Their parents whispered warnings, respect them, but do not get close. One night, a brave reporter approached Ghost as she cleaned her weapon. He asked, Why did Earth send you? Ghost looked up, her eyes cold and sharp. They cried for help, she said. So we answered. The reporter asked, What are you? Ghost didn't blink, didn't smile, she replied. We're the last thing the galaxy sees when it goes too far. The interview was never aired, the footage vanished, the reporter disappeared. And everyone understood the message. The Brackner were running now, their fleet scattering. But Ghost and her team didn't return home, not yet, because unfinished work still echoed across the stars. Other planets had been attacked. Other people had cried for help, and now Earth's shadows walked the galaxy again, not for justice, not for glory, but to remind everyone, the humans were never gone, they were just waiting. The Brackner swarm was known for one thing, never backing down. Even after losing most of their forces on Veralis, they regrouped. They called for reinforcements. Bringing warships from the outer sectors, commanders from the dark nebulae swore. Revenge. They believed it was just bad luck, just surprise tactics from Earth. They thought 5 humans couldn't break them again. They were wrong. Very wrong. In a dark command chamber aboard the Brackner dreadnought Thresherclaw, the warlord Gorvac roared. I want them wiped from the galaxy, he shouted. Send everything. His generals nodded, terrified. They had seen the footage, ghosts tearing through squads, weapons turning against their masters, captains dropping dead in the middle of commands. But they couldn't retreat. Not now. If they did, they'd be devoured by their own kind. They made their move. Hundreds of Brackner warships entered Veralis. Orbit again, thousands of soldiers, drones, and mechs dropped from the sky. They were angry, prepared, ready to crush the 5 humans once and for all. But they had already made their last mistake. Ghost was waiting. From her position on a broken observation tower, she looked through her lens at the black dots falling from the sky. She didn't panic, didn't speak. She smiled. Let them come. She said. Grim pounded his fists into the stone wall beside him. Cracking it, he looked up. Excited finally, he growled. A real fight. Surge's fingers danced across a data screen. I've already entered half their fleet, he said calmly. They used the same old code again, he laughed. You'd think, after getting wrecked, they'd learn something. Ice lay on the edge of a cliff. Her rifle ready, her heartbeat slow and still. I count 29 generals, she said softly. Can I take all of them? Ghost replied, make it quick. Ice blinked once. Then her finger touched the trigger. Nova stood in the center of a shattered plaza. His eyes glowed white. The air around him shimmered like heat waves. Birds fell from the sky without touching him. When the first Brackner soldiers reached him, they raised their rifles. Nova didn't move. He whispered, too late, and then everything around him froze, cracked, and collapsed, on board the Thresherclaw. Gorvac watched as entire units disappeared from the map. He slammed his clawed hand onto the table. How? An officer trembled. They don't move like soldiers, they move like nightmares, another officer added. They're inside our fleet systems. Our ships are turning against us. Suddenly, the command screens went black. Then one lit up again, showing a live feed. Ghost appeared on screen.com. Arms crossed. Her voice was steady, sharp as a blade. You made one mistake, she said. You came back. Then the ship shook violently. Lights flickered, and alarms screamed. Ghost's face vanished, and Surge's symbol, a laughing skull, took its place. Boom. His voice echoed across every enemy ship. Up in orbit, half the Brackner fleet exploded at once. Surge had hijacked their cores, overloaded their power, crashed their nav systems. The sky above Veralis lit up like a festival. Except the celebration was death. On the ground, Grim tore through Brackner squads like a hurricane. He lifted a mech by its leg and smashed it into another. Soft metal, he said, laughing. His body was covered in cuts, but he didn't care. Pain meant nothing to him. He was built for this. Ice took out every field commander within 30 minutes. Her bullets moved faster than sound. Brackner leaders died mid-command, their heads bursting before anyone knew what happened. One tried to run, hiding in a bunker. Ice dropped a bullet down the vent, curved mid-air, and ended him silently. Nova floated above a battlefield now, its body glowing brighter. The Brackner aimed plasma cannons at him and fired, but the blasts bent around him like light around a black hole. He reached out his hand, and the cannons turned into ice. When he closed his fist, they shattered. The people of Veralis watched in awe and terror. They had hoped the humans would win, but not like this. This wasn't war. This was something ancient, something unnatural. The Brackner weren't being defeated. They were being erased in one last act of desperation. Gorvak launched a bomb meant to destroy the planet's surface. He screamed, "If I die, they all die." But before the bomb could reach the ground, disappeared. Nova appeared on the screen inside the Brackner ship, holding the bomb in his hand. He said nothing, just stared. Then he closed his eyes, and the bomb melted into glowing dust. That was the moment the Brackner stopped fighting. They dropped their weapons, fled into the hills, tried to vanish, but Ghost's voice echoed. Once more across the planet, no survivors. The Brackner had made their last mistake. And now, they would never make another. The skies above Veralis were clear now. The smoke had faded, the screams were gone, and the Brackner were no more. Their ships were broken, their mechs shattered, their commanders gone. But Ghost was not done. She stood in the middle of the battlefield, staring at the stars. "They'll call for help," she said. "Their homeworld will send more," Grim growled. "Let them." Ice checked her rifle. "I still have rounds left," Surge laughed. "Softly, I've already hacked their emergency relay." Nova remained silent, his glowing eyes fixed on the sky. The team knew what had to happen next. This was not about saving one planet anymore. This was about ending the threat forever, and to do that, they had to go to Brackner Prime, the heart of the swarm. Veralis offered ships, medals, and celebration, but Ghost only said, "We don't need thanks." Lurin approached her, nervous but grateful. "Where are you going?" He asked. She replied, "To make sure no one ever hears from them again." Within hours, Earth sent a single message. Clearance granted. Eclipse Protocol continues. The team boarded their stealth craft. No flags, no fanfare, no return date. They vanished into the stars like shadows, and all of Veralis held its breath. 3 days passed, then Brackner Prime went silent. No transmissions, no signals, no movement. Galactic Union scanners could not detect any activity. Trade routes near the Brackner system reported empty space. No ships flying in, none flying out at first. No one believed it. The Brackner homeworld was one of the most fortified places in the galaxy, protected by a defense ring, planetary shields, and millions of soldiers. It had never been touched, not by fleets, not by storms, not by war, but now. Silence, a recon drone was sent by a neutral merchant guild. It entered the system quietly. What it recorded shocked the galaxy. The planet was intact, no craters, no burns, no signs of bombardment, but everything was. Still Brackner Prime looked. Like a statue, cities frozen, ships hanging in orbit with no power. No movement, no heat, no sound. It was as if the entire world had simply stopped. The drone picked up one thing before it was shut down. A signal floating in space, weak but clear. It played one sentence in human standard code. Threat neutralized. Humans returning. The signals spread across the galaxy in seconds. News channels, military networks, even pirate radios played it again and again. People didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They simply sat in silence because they understood. The message wasn't just about the Brackner. It was a warning back. On Veralis, Loren stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky was blue again. Children played in the streets. Markets reopened, but high above. 5 statues had been placed on the city's highest tower, each one shaped like a human, each one silent and still. They were not placed there as gods or warriors. They were there as reminders. Carved into the stone beneath them were the words, "Do not summon Earth unless you are ready for what comes." On Earth, the Eclipse team returned to their deep underground base. No interviews, no awards, no welcome. They walked into darkness as quietly as they had left. Ghost placed her dog tag back into a locked case. She didn't speak. Grim cleaned the blood off his arms and disappeared into the shadows. Ice disassembled her rifle and returned to her silent room. Surge backed up his data, smiled to himself, and shut down his systems. Nova stood still in the middle of the hall, then slowly sat on the floor, eyes glowing dimly. Earth's officials sent no statements. No one talked about what really happened on Brackner Prime, but every military in the galaxy updated their threat charts. One note appeared at the top of every file: do not engage human Eclipse units under any condition. In hidden chambers on other planets, leaders held emergency meetings. Some wanted to build weapons like Earth. Others wanted to sign peace deals immediately, but none of them knew what truly happened on Brackner Prime. And none of them wanted to find out. The fear was not in what the humans had done. The fear was in how little they said about it. For the first time in galactic history, a major power had vanished without war, without a trace, without even a warning. The galaxy had always laughed at Earth, called them savage, primitive, broken. But now, no one was laughing, no one dared, because Earth had shown its shadows, and the shadows had erased a world. They returned in silence. No flags waved, no crowd cheered. No news broadcast followed them. The 5 humans stepped off their black ship one by one. No medals waited for them. No leader came to shake their hands. Just darkness, cold steel halls, and locked doors. Earth didn't ask questions. Earth already knew. Ghost handed over a small cube, the final mission log. The officer who took it didn't open it. He simply nodded and said, "You did what you had to." Ghost gave no reply. She just turned and walked into the corridor. Vanishing into the shadows, Grimm returned to the underground training zone. He picked up a weight the size of a vehicle and started lifting it like it was paper. No words, no smile. He only stopped to wipe blood off his knuckles' old blood. Not his. Serge plugged himself into a wall terminal. His eyes flickered with light as data flowed into him. He didn't speak, just kept working. Behind him, 1,000 security systems updated quietly. A new protocol was added: do not disturb Eclipse units in rest mode. Ice cleaned her rifle, then locked it in a black box with no label. She walked into a frozen chamber, sat on the floor and closed her eyes. Sleep never came easily. For her, but in the cold at least, she felt calm. Nova stood in the middle of a dark room. Didn't move, didn't blink. Lights flickered around him, rising and falling with his breath. He looked like a child. But the room around him seemed afraid. Above ground, the people of Earth heard whispers. Whispers of what happened to Brackner Prime. Whispers of 5 shadows that erased an empire. No one dared to say it loud, but everyone understood. Earth had not just survived, it had shown its teeth in the Galactic Union. Chaos followed, some empires demanded answers, others chose silence, but all of them updated their laws. Every single one added one new rule: do not engage with Earth's Eclipse team, no matter the reason. An ambassador from a wealthy star system said, "We must treat Earth with care." Another replied, "We must treat them with distance." A third said softly, "We must never forget what they are." On Veralis, peace returned slowly. Shops reopened, schools welcomed children again. But no one erased the statues. No one touched the message carved beneath them. Every child learned the story, not of heroes, but of shadows. Not of mercy, but of the warning. A monument stood at the city's edge, 5 simple chairs facing the stars. No names, no titles, just a glowing line beneath them. They came when we cried, and left us with silence. One day, a little girl asked her grandfather, "Will the humans come back?" The old man looked up at the stars and said, "They will, if the galaxy forgets again." Years passed, but fear did not fade. Even criminal lords in distant systems told their warriors, "Don't touch Earth, don't take their people, don't answer their silence," because silence now meant danger. Silence meant Eclipse. Meanwhile, in a secret room deep under Earth's surface, Ghost sat in front of a screen. One light on the screen turned red, a distress signal. Weak, far away, she leaned forward, reading the name of the planet. Another cry, another forgotten voice. She tapped her comms unit and said one word, "Ready?" Grimm stopped lifting. Serge unplugged with a smirk. Ice opened her eyes in the cold. Nova's glow grew bright again. They didn't ask who needed help. They didn't ask what happened. They only knew someone cried and Earth was listening before leaving. Ghost left. A single message for Earth's command. Deploying 5 is enough, in the skies above Earth. A dark ship rose again. No lights, no sound, just shadows heading toward another star. Another problem, another warning, the galaxy had learned once. But humans knew it would forget again, and when it did, the 5 would return. Not for peace, not for war, but for silence, because Earth doesn't send armies, it sends its most dangerous secrets, it sends the ones who don't speak, it sends Eclipse